Yo, Mono San Bonani, hello, how's it? Good evening and shalom to you guys. Let me apologize for this very, very late episode of Late Nights with BDL. I've actually just returned from yeah, very busy evening. Very busy evening. Let me leave it at that. Let me just quickly do a sound check. Can you guys hear me? Because I'm not running the sound through the vehicle. So if I can get just a quick confirmation in the comments that you can hear me fine. Guys, this will be a very quick episode. As you can see, I'm in my car. And, I've just come from... Okay, thank you, Bradley Murray. Shout out to you for that quick message saying loud and clear. Thank you, Matthew Reynard. I see you, homie. Thanks a lot. And I see you, Lloyd. Again, let me just apologize once again for the late episode. I've just come from the Cape Flats. I won't say where I was with some, I was with a group of guys who I've been working with in the ground war. Basically, guys who have said, hey, we love the ideas, Big Daddy Liberty. We're sold on the idea of liberty. We're sold on the idea of a market economy. We're sold on the idea of faith, flag, family, and freedom. And we're just strategizing now as to how they can become the zealots for these ideas and to spread them into their communities. So that work went on for quite a bit. And then I had to sort of rush back, fetch a friend. Guys, one of those sort of days. So I did lose track of time. And it happens. I did warn you guys that, things would be a little difficult to keep a tab on time when you start the ground war. So let me apologize for this late episode. And it is on that basis then that I'm not going to be long in this particular episode. But it is something which I wanted to wrap up the week chatting about, which is the economic freedom fighters. I think there is a conversation to be had about them. What they did this week is very serious. And I think the commentariat in this country generally, because they're so sympathetic to communists and socialists in this country, you'll never hear what I'm about to say and my analysis coming from them. So, as I always say, this show will always provide an alternative take to what you'll hear in the mainstream media. So we're going to have that conversation tonight as a late night fireside chat, if I can call it that. And I say fireside because, the rain here in Cape Town, guys. Phew. And it's a little crazy how, just as a quick little bookmark before I continue, as I said, I spent the day on the Cape Flats, in the Cape Flats, and in one of the areas I was in, guys, it's like it's a complete informal settlement, and with all the rain that's been falling here in Cape Town, you're literally weaving through shacks. And it's just mud everywhere. Mud, puddles of water everywhere. And there's no infrastructure. So people are literally... It's crazy, man. I get the benefit of being able to leave, right? But that's their daily reality. And it's when people who live in those circumstances give me the honor of their time, give me the honor of literally saying, BDL, we live in these circumstances, but we love your ideas because we can see that they can help us free ourselves from this situation. That's why I do what I do. That's what keeps me mobilized, energized, and just literally to my dying levels of energy. I got trapped by my own passion there. But that's what motivates me to keep doing what I'm doing and why the ground war is super important. It's when people who have much less than you and I do literally say, dog, we hear your ideas and we see how they can actually free us from the grinding poverty that we're experiencing at the moment. So again, I must apologize for being late, but let's get straight into the conversation. Please forgive me. Things might go a little bit darker because I just took this opportunity to start the live stream as I quickly stop by here at an engine just to pick up some milk and some tea. So things might go a bit dark as I drive to where I'm staying. So bear with me in that regard. That's why this will be a short episode. With that being said, thank you so much for the 92 of you who are joining me tonight. Again, I'm really, really sorry for being late, but let's have that chat because I think this week showed us something which, whether you want to view it as a blessing or a curse, the lockdown period had spared us it for a very long time, which is the shenanigans of the red and tooth and claw communists that are called the economic freedom fighters. These shenanigans, of course, have always taken the form of their propensity to violence and a sheer disrespect by our political elites in this country, in this case the EFF, but a sheer disrespect by the political elites of our life, our liberties, and of course, our property rights. Clicks found this out the hard way as I get moving here. But Clicks found this out the hard way when faced by the red-clad mob at its doors. It was failed by the state, both in terms of the judiciary and of course the South African police services, the actual government. Sorry, I'm giggling because I just saw a funny comment here. No, this video is not sponsored by Engine. But yeah, let me not lose track of my thought process here as I wait at an intersection and blah, blah, blah. Clicks found out the hard way that when you're facing down commies, you've got to have a steely resolve. There can be no quarter given to any communist, period. Whether you want to go back in the record of history and right up to even today, where communism generally is finding a resurgence in South Africa and really all over the world. Both as a formal ideology being held by certain vested interest groups. In South Africa, for example, it would be the EFF, the South African Communist Party, large elements of the ruling ANC, that's the African National Congress, and throughout the world, as I said, South Africa is not the only country that is dealing with the re-emergence of the communist left. And of course, the gaggle of socialists who sort of flock around communist ideology. I mean, the Americans, for example, have been facing down, well, it's arguable whether they've been facing them down, but in any event, they've been facing the likes of Black Lives Matter, who are avowed communists, by the way. Never be fooled by someone who says, yeah, Black Lives Matter is just like a lobby organization, that cares about black lives, blah, 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 blah. And none of that is true. None of that is true. Black Lives Matter is a red in tooth and claw communist organization that has every intention of breaking American society, destroying American institutions with the view of establishing a communist order in that part of the world. And I love it when people lose their minds when I say this and they go, oh, Big Daddy, that's hyperbole. You're entering the realm of conspiracy theory. And then you point out to those idiots, those communist sympathizers, that actually BLM themselves are saying that. It is not my assessment of them. It is actually what they are saying themselves. Do yourself a favor and do a little bit of research and find out directly from the commie's mouth, since I can't call them horses, because at least they're horses of use, directly from the commie's mouth, what they openly state is their objective. And the destruction of American society is wholeheartedly their number one goal, to set up this communist dystopia. But it doesn't end with just BLM, because I was making the point that the stuff is rising. There's a rise of it around the world. The likes of ANTIFA, ironically named anti-fascist, given how fascist they are themselves. Also, Marxist in nature. Their ideology is Marxist in nature. Again, don't take it from me. Literally read what a lot of their various chapters say they stand for. It is communist ideology. So let me bring it back home, because you're seeing this, as I said, around the world, but more so here in South Africa, where we've actually kind of mainstreamed the communist left in this country, the socialism, the lefties. We've really actually, we've mainstreamed them right up to the extent where they have waged a grinding campaign over about the last 40 years or so, and accelerated, of course, over the last 26 years when they got political power, of corrupting the very institutions of South African society that are meant to protect all South Africans. These institutions that are created by our constitution. And again, I'm not prosecuting the issue of the constitution, because I have my gripes with our constitution in any event, because I've argued in some places that our constitution actually enables some of this nonsense. But that's neither here nor there for now. Neither here nor there for now. The point is, you have these commies who are literally emboldened. Actually, no, before I get to that, let me finish the thought process. So you have the rise of communism and the left, the broad left, as they assume two layers and levels of power. The first is formal power. Now, I'm talking exclusively here in South Africa, because this will come back to, and I'll help you understand what the EFF is actually doing in South Africa and why it's very dangerous. The first is formal power. So the EFF play the game, right? So they'll form a political party. Initially, it's a political party of the disgruntled, because they come from the ANC. They form a political party, and some of the best populist messaging always comes from communist ideology. It always comes from the left. Some of the best populist ideology will always come from the left, because it's the sort of ideology and messaging that always speaks to people's inner laziness, if I can put it that way. You know, saying things like, oh, I, the politician with the state at my behest, will provide free this, free that. You will live off of someone else. It's always the communist message in nature. So it's deeply populist, and of course, it captures the hearts and minds of the easily swayed, as I've always argued. So in this particular instance, the EFF play the formal game. They play the formal game, which is to basically say, you know, we'll form a political party, we'll pretend to owe fealty to the constitution, but really what we're going to do is we're going to disrupt the formal institutions of society using those very same mechanisms, i.e. formal political party and the like. So the disruption happens in a formal sense. That's the first level in which they play. The second one, of course, is the informal, where the rule of law in their book they don't even care. They care little to nothing for the rule of law. They are literally chaos mongers, if I can call them that, where you're so caught up in the illusion of them being a formal political party that you even overlook the sheer, almost animalistic thuggery of the EFF, where you're busy playing by the rules. You're busy playing by, oh, this is what the law says, I need to do this, I need to do that, and they don't hold themselves to that standard at all. And that's what you saw this week. If I can circle back to what I want to say here, that's what you saw this week. You saw an EFF which basically, whilst you were, sorry, I'm just flashing for that guy to put his lights on. There we go. Whilst you were focusing on, what you call it, you know, sorry guys. Whilst you were focusing on the sheer audacity of the EFF flouting the law and paying no regard to life, liberty, and the property rights of this case of cliques. They literally had no sense of not even shame around not playing by the rules and using violence, intimidation, and essentially a mob mentality. I'm trying not to swear, guys. I'm trying not to swear. I'm sorry if I'm dawdling a little bit in how I talk. I'm trying not to swear, because what happened this week really registered on a very emotional level insofar as how enraging it should have been. Faith, flag, family, freedom type people that I often talk about. What we saw this week should have been incredibly enraging to you, because what you basically saw was that if you play by the rules in South Africa, yes, yes, Jackson, I'm on the road. Hashtag screw the curfew. No, don't, don't take my word on that. For all you know, I'm not on the road. But I digress. Sorry, I got I got sidetracked there. What we saw this week, of course, should have been incredibly enraging to those of us who, for those of us who are the sort of law and order, rule of law type people. Because, as I said, we play by the rules, right? And by the way, that's part and parcel of living in a functional society. You play by the rules. And it is those rules, in a functional democracy at least, that accord people as much liberty and freedom as possible. And of course, more importantly, protect life, liberty, and property rights. And create, most importantly, equality before the law. And what we found out this week, and we didn't really find it out, we've always known this, but it was a sharp reminder once again, is that the EFF in this country, like most political elites, are above the law. And that they can operate with impunity. They can operate with impunity outside of the bounds of the law, and that those of us who still waste our time trying to follow the law, well, that's exactly it, right? You're wasting your time. And cliques quickly found that out. Why? Well, when cliques tried to go to, when cliques tried to approach the arms of the state for protection against these thugs, these, what I like to call thugocrats, because they pretend to be Democrats, but really they're not. When they tried to go to the law, in other words, approach the courts, what did the judges say initially? In that first application for an interdict, they were dismissed with costs. Imagine that. You literally have evidence that the EFF are inciting violence, and that the following day, in this case, in their case at that time, you will have a mob descend on you, a mob who has a wanton disregard for human life. We know that about the EFF. The mob who have a wanton disregard for property rights. We know that about the EFF. And definitely a mob who has a wanton disregard for our freedoms and our liberty. We know that about the EFF. You knew that they were about to descend on you the very next day, and the court said, nah, meh. Not only meh, but they dismissed you with a meh, and they asked you to pay their costs of the actual thugs. Hey. Aibo, guys, I'm warning you. As I said, and I began this video by saying, the EFF are playing two levels of power. The formal power, in which they are a registered political party in this country, and they pretend to follow the rule of law. They pretend to owe a fealty to the Constitution. And of course, the informal power. The informal power is the one I'm going to dwell on for this episode, because the informal power is the one which justifies the argument I'm making, which is the EFF are waging a campaign of sedition. The EFF are waging a campaign of sedition. I said it. They are looking to subvert the institutions of society, because I'm not really concerned about the state per se, but they're actually more interested in subverting the institutions of society using violence, intimidation, and tactics that are akin to the mob. So that you and I, as law-abiding citizens, now find ourselves as having to think twice around, does the state and will the state actually play its rightful role of protecting my life, my liberty, and my property rights? And the answer we found out this week is no. Simply no. So guys, we're in a lot of trouble here. We're actually in a lot of trouble. And I'm not saying what I'm saying lightly. The EFF are waging a campaign of sedition, where on the one hand, it will distract you by its formal exercise of power, according to it by, it being a political party and blah, 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 blah. It will distract you with that shit. Excuse my language, damn I swore. It will distract you with that. But what it's really doing, and where you should really keep an eye on it, is the stuff that it does outside of the framework of the law. That mob type EFF, where its political leadership in this country, without shame, can call on people to attack, close quote. And that becomes very dangerous for me when I think about the people who I care about, i.e. South African families. When you have a government who, in a slow and grinding way over the last 26 years, has sought to disarm you, has sought to remove more of your rights, has sought to create of you less of a citizen and more of a subject. Because you've got to ask yourself the question, what is a filthy, dirty commie fixing to do to me and my family for him to feel the need to first disarm me? That is the question South Africans need to ask themselves. What is that filthy communist, that filthy socialist in government and his friends in the political elite who are also commies and socialists? What are they fixing to do to me and mine that they felt the need to slowly, not only degrade my rights and my freedoms, but disarm me, prevent me from looking after myself and my family? What are they fixing to do to me? Because I can tell you now, when you begin to put all the pieces together and you see the behavior of the ANC's radical arm, its radical Marxist arm, the EFF, and how, in an almost complementary way, as I mentioned in my previous log, the EFF and the ANC work together in a very complementary way. The illusion to you and me, because we're being dribbled, is that they're different, right? Because there's different colors, different leaders, and at a formal level, there's all this pomp and ceremony. Oh, the EFF and the ANC, honorable member this, honorable member that, points of order, all that nonsense. You're being dribbled on that. That's the illusion. It's what's happening behind all of that, that other layer of power that I said the EFF wants to exercise, which is not the formal power. It's the power that happens outside of the framework of the law, the mob mentality. That's the one where the real danger comes from. Where corporate South Africa cowered this past week because they realized the state is not here to protect them. But because they're idiots in corporate, they'll continue pandering to the ANC, trying to curry favor. And all I'm asking you, don't be like those corporates. Don't be dribbled. See the ANC, see the EFF, see the broader political elite in this country, see the mainstream media, see the academia for exactly who they are. Exactly who they are. Do not be dribbled. Because I'm telling you now, the behavior of the EFF, because I've seen some of the commentariat and the analysis, it's been a little shallow. People have said, oh, this was the EFF basically, using this as a way of getting some attention because they needed the attention, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's true. But it's not the be-all, end-all of what you saw. There's a grander plan behind this. There's an absolute grander plan behind this. It was not just about attention and all that nonsense. Yes, that was aesthetically at face value. That's exactly what they were doing. But there is an agenda in this country by those who are yoked to the left, the communist socialist left in this country, to subvert the institutions of South African society. The state they've already captured. And the work of capturing it continues. As you're seeing, for example, rulings like these that don't protect our life, our liberty, and our property rights. As you're seeing a government who, even as violence is playing itself out at Click stores, some of them were being petrol bombed, some of them were being raided and destroyed, some of them were just being even padlocked from the outside. Even as all of that was happening, there was not a word of real condemnation, and there was definitely no action, because there were saps literally loitering, at times even watching the EFF do this. So you would have realized very quickly that actually the state is not going to protect me at a judicial level, at the state, at the government level, at the very least, and definitely not at the law enforcement level. Guys, I'm warning you. And I don't care what people say, because I know what there are some people in this country, especially on social media, I live in their heads rent-free. Oh, there he goes again, sprouting these communist theories and conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, it's happening right around you. It's happening. But you're being told by this gaggle of, as I said, it's a crooked coalition of academia, activists, media, and a political elite that, don't worry, what we're doing is, it's not going to come to you. We're just in jail, destroying institutions in favor of appropriating power at a formal and an informal level in their hands. That's what the commies are doing in this country. But they're dribbling you by pretending as though there's no agenda. It's just a happenstance of things that happen together. That's where they're dribbling you. So, guys, this is what I've been thinking about this week. Because we're in real danger here. We are in real danger. I just saw a comment now that reminded me of a tweet I did this week. It was a little bit amusing, but it was true. Once it clicked on clicks, once it, I'm sorry. But once clicks realized that they're on their own here, and that the state wouldn't protect them at a formal level, they did what corporates do. They capitulated, they gave in, they rolled on their back, and they exposed their belly, and they said, you know what, mea culpa. This was racism, even though it wasn't racism. Now that I really look at this thing, nothing racist about that ad. I think what they were just doing is saying, you know what, just admit to it, hopefully all of this goes away. And then promise some trinkets, promise protection money to the mob, so that they just go away. Just leave me alone, they said. And sure enough, the EFF claimed that as a victory in the name of protecting black dignity. Hey, for sec, there's no black dignity in what they were doing. In fact, it's incredibly condescending to suggest that acting like an absolute animal like that somehow enhances or protects my dignity as a black person. That is incredibly condescending. And anytime someone suggests that online, immediately shut them out and shut them down, because it's absolute nonsense. There is nothing about what the EFF does which is pro-black, in inverted commas. These are commies. And the truth of the matter is, state socialism and communism has never been in the character of the South African people. It has no place in our tradition. It has no hold of our lives. If anything, this nonsense is being imposed on us by an elite, a political elite. And there is a big difference between what the political elite in this country hold as ideas for a society versus what ordinary people in this country, black, white, Indian, colored, you name it, versus what they hold as what they want in this country. Again, don't take it from me. There's a lot of work that is done by Stats SA, the Institute of Race Relations, actual polling work that demonstrates this, that there is a big gulf between what the ideas that are held by the political elite in this country and academia and ordinary people. The God-fearing, law-abiding, family-orientated people that I often talk about. Those people who I say when I do my work, my groundwork, I push out my values of faith, flag, family, and freedom. You don't see that in our formal politics. So nje fusek to anybody who says to me, oh, these ideas are in protection of the people or in protection of blacks. It's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And as I hit the 30-minute mark, let me say hello to everybody who's joined. You're watching Late Nights with Big Daddy Liberty. My apologies on the substandard lighting. I am in my car, and I did say this would be a quick one. But let me summate. And I'll read some comments and get some participation going here. Because really, what I really want to argue here, and I began by saying, there's I see you, Jakes. Shout out, homie from Kakamas. Yo, Jacques. How did I lie to you, Jacques? Sorry, I'm reading some comments here. Guys, I'm gonna go into the comments just now. We'll have a conversation. We'll have a dialogue. But let me summate the idea so I can also see what you guys think about it. There's two layers, as I said, of what the EFF is doing. The one is the front that is meant to distract and dribble. The other that has the men behind the curtains, the informal, that's the one which represents a seditious attempt at subverting South African society and corrupting our institutions. Number one, as I said, was the formal, where the EFF at a formal level is a political party, registered, pretends to care about the constitution, pretends to do things through the institutions of society, parliament, and the like. There's that level of the EFF. That level of the EFF, the pretense one, that's the one that pretends that it's in opposition with the ANC. That's the one that pretends it is in opposition to the ANC. It's the other one, the slick one, the informal one, the one that operates outside of the rule of law, that sees itself as being exempt from the rule of law and law and order. That's the one that works hand in glove with the ANC and is the radical arm, the radical communist arm of the ANC. That one is the one which embarks on seditious behavior, actual sedition, subverting the institutions of society and, of course, of the state, because those two are linked to an extent in this country. That's the one that you are in danger of, because that's the one that rocks up to your door and literally using intimidatory tactics, incitement, violence, will literally shut down and attack, if you will, as if I use their own words, your life, your liberty, and your property rights. That's the one that doesn't care what your skin color is, by the way. Just in case you think being black will protect you from that EFF. No, my darling, it won't. Commies don't care about your race because they don't care about your life, period. You cannot tell me an ideology that has a body count of 200 million people in the 20th century suddenly cares about your life because you're black. Good luck with that. I'm telling y'all, man, y'all need to vulgar and know who you're dealing with. Commies don't care about your life, period. You are but a means to an end to them. And that end is the acquisition and retention of power at all costs. Where the institutions of society that protect life, liberty, and property rights for everybody, who are then equal before the law, they will work flat out to destroy that. They do not want that, period. And that is the EFF, that informal EFF that I talk about, which is the one which you've got to keep an eye on. It is very dangerous. That is the seditious EFF. And that's the one who you saw this week. So I'm just trying to turn stuff off here to save battery. But I'm nearly done. I'm going to go into some comments, guys. So, guys, what we saw here is nothing short of seditious behavior by the EFF. And it will continue. And what you basically saw, because corporates capitulated as quickly as they did, is an EFF who will now be emboldened. So here's my prediction. Y'all liked my other prediction that I did 2 weeks ago, where I basically said this shit is coming, or this stuff is coming. Sorry, I'm swearing tonight. That's 2 swear words tonight. I have to put 20 rand in the swear jar. Y'all liked that prediction where I said, hey, these politicians are under a lot of pressure. And you know what that means? When the politicians in South Africa are under pressure, a race scandal is coming in your media. Where academia, who are often used as experts in our mainstream media, academia, the media itself, mainstream media, and the political elites dribble you using a race scandal. And you saw that happen. So here's another prediction for you. What's coming this week is an attack on our character as South Africans. What's coming this week is an attack on our character as South Africans. And how they'll do it is they'll use something which at face value seems rational. So they'll say something like, yeah, I'm trying to think of an example here. Let me use the Americans as an example, because this is how they did it in America. Actually, I can come back to home. If you remember Rhodes Must Fall, Rhodes became the symbol through which you then attack someone else based on an immutable characteristic of theirs. So Rhodes and the Rhodes Must Fall campaign quickly transformed into a campaign against white people in this country. So you can almost expect to keep the race scandal, the race distraction going, that's coming this week. That's coming this week. We're going to be told that something has to be changed or removed in light of what happened last week with the EFF and clicks, blah, blah, blah. All the blavity blacks are going to come out. All the SJW whites are going to come out in support of this. And there will be an attempt at using state power, formal state power, to enact something which at face value seems reasonable, but in reality is actually attacking people based on immutable characteristics. The sort of cultural Marxism that we've been saying, I've been arguing, we're seeing in this country, where lefties are no longer content with just confining their argument as society being one of the haves and have-nots, or the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, but making a further argument, that the divisions in our society and the oppressive nature in it happens because of also race and gender and all that nonsense. So prepare yourself, dear South African. That is coming this week. That is coming this week. I'm under no illusions about that. Because they've got to keep the narrative going that South Africa is an oppressive society and that we blacks are being attacked left, right, and center. And that based on that, we need the communist likes of the EFF and the ANC to protect our dignity. There's always going to be a victim narrative versus an oppressor. And in this country, it plays itself out in the traditional Marxist way, of course, of class, and of course, the cultural Marxist way of gender, race, and all these other things. So prepare yourself. That's coming this week. And of course, because this entire thing is a crooked little coalition, the media will play along, the political elites will play along, and of course, academia will play along. The faux intelligentsia in this country, the commentariat, if I can call them that, they're going to play along. Gird your loins. That's coming. So guys, that was my thoughts on this. Tell me what you think. Remember, if you're still here watching, I see all 278 of you guys. I appreciate that. Please like the video. Like, and share it. That clearly does something with the algorithm that YouTube uses, and it gets the video out. So please like the video if you're at this point. Remember, guys, you can support my work before I go into the comments. And again, in me saying this, let me apologize for the lateness of this video. I've actually just come from the Cape Flats, and I lost track of time as I'm doing the ground wall and the groundwork. You can support that groundwork, of course, by becoming a donator on the show by $1 a month, guys. Between 17 and 20 Rand a month does it, where you can either find me on Patreon, and I'll put that link in the descriptor, or you can donate directly on PayPal. I will also open up other ways in which you can donate. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to go into questions here. If there are any questions or just comments, to be honest. Let's see here. You're going to have to forgive me. The comments do fly by really quickly here. I'm seeing Mark Shingleton. Thanks, my brother, for sharing. I appreciate you. Sandra Smith, thank you for sharing. Baba Lwe, let's see what Baba Lwe has to say. What about professionalizing the public service so that we don't have to wait for servants? We don't have to wait for servants to be convicted criminally so that they're ousted from their position. Psycha. Okay, I'm not sure if that's wholly directed at me, Baba Lwe, but generally speaking, the professionalization of the civil service, yeah, that's important, right? But the one thing you also need to do is shrink the size of government, period. We've got to, that's part of the ideas that I'm putting out in society, that actually what you really want to do in a society like South Africa is shrink the size of the state and grow the size of South African families. Take the power and the resources out of the hands of politicians and actually put them into the hands of us, individuals, families. Let individuals and families decide what is best for them by taking, as I said, the power and the resources out of the hands of these government officials who are easily corruptible and put it rather into the hands of the individual and families. If you do that, then you bypass a lot of the nonsense that you see that often gets in the way of individuals. Let's see here. Sorry, Babalo, I wasn't sure where you were coming from in the conversation, so I just thought I should throw that out there generally, because it's also critically important now, as we've reached a point where the South African government has actually admitted itself that it's broke, that there is just no more money in the system. It's reached that point. And that in reality, we're very close as a country to the fiscal cliff, that point of no return. So it's important now that we actually wage the battle of ideas. And the ideas that I at least push out when I'm doing my work in communities is that it is you, the individual, it is you, the family, who should be the most important decision maker in society, that you should have the resources. And there are obviously ways from a policy level, when I then get a chance to sit down and talk to people. For example, today, just to give a small example, in I won't name the communities that I've been in, because I've got a feeling there's some people now who are really paying attention to where I am, what, and blah, 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 without sounding conspiratorial, but nonetheless. But in one of the communities that I was in, I was touting the idea of the education voucher. The education voucher being, instead of having government officials and politicians spend the money that the Department of Education spends every year, rather break that money up into vouchers and give it to families directly, so that you can give a school child, each school child, the parent really, a voucher to the value of between 16 and 22,000 Rand per year per child, depending on how you do the calculation, for that parent to then decide where they send their child to get an education. That idea is wildly popular. Insofar as my experience with those who I've shared it with, it's wildly popular. So it's those sort of ideas of what I mean when I talk about liberty ideas, and how I can break them down into various areas of spending where people can relate to them. So I can talk about liberty ideas on education, on healthcare, safety and security, etc., etc. So my next step now, and this is where you guys get involved in terms of, the donations and all that work, is printing a leaflet, printing posters, and hopefully, please God, being able to even print billboards where you can put some of these ideas. Almost, my vision for the Big Daddy Liberty movement is that it needs to look like a political party. It needs to look like a political party insofar as I'm not asking people for votes, I'm just pushing ideas out. So you'll see my ideas on billboards, you'll see them in leaflets as I do door-to-doors and hand over leaflets, talk to people, etc., etc. But the difference is the Big Daddy Liberty movement will be 365 days per year. So where politicians only come once every 5 years, BDL and his ideas are in communities 365 days a year, pushing these ideas into communities and changing our society that way. So for those of you who are supporting me and funding the work, that's what you're funding. I hope you understand that that's exactly what you're funding. My ability to grow this thing into becoming a national movement where we just work with ideas, push ideas into communities, sway them so that it becomes very difficult for a bad politician to sell bad ideas to people who are literally enlightened, if you will. Sorry about that. Let me get into other questions, guys. Alex T. Big Daddy Liberty, is it true that EFF is distancing South Africans to cover up its tracks on the VBS scandal? Dude, I wouldn't put it past them. As I said, politicians are dribbling you. These people are dribbling you. There is an intention, and a wholehearted intention by them for you to be distracted, for you to be someone who responds viscerally and responds emotionally, so that you don't ask them tough questions. Because that's essentially what happened this past week. Let's see here. Shout out to you, Monet Kruger, for the 35 rands. I see you. Thank you so much. And shout out to you, Jacques Vint. Jacques Vint. For the, dude, thank you so much for the 350. I see you, my brother. And his comment is, I will pay you for your swearing. Go crazy. Now, my brother, hey, man, I need to watch what I say, man. You know, at a religious level, I'm in the month of Elul. And, you know, it's a very significant religious month for me. So I'm actually really trying to watch my language generally. And also watching how I talk about, you know, and how I talk generally. You know, we Jews have a concept of Lashon Hara. Anyway, no, let me not go into that. But thank you, my brother. I see your comment. Shout out to you. Kolia Fundamarva. I'm assuming that's what the VDM is. Thank you so much for the 35 rand super chat. I see you. I'm good at any job I do. Now it's so cold. Maybe they think I'm too old. Okay, that rhymed. I see you, Kolia. Got that inner rapper in you. I see you, girl. Under 50 FFS. Didn't understand that last sentence, but that was actually quite an interesting rhyme. Mohammed Hunter. Hey, dog. Good to see you. Great ideas from our favorite fat boy. Hey, thanks, man. If you like the ideas, again, support the work. It's these ideas that I'm pushing out into communities and having people adopt them and become the sort of people who then push them into their own community. I'm going to read 5 more comments, guys, because I want to wrap up because the lighting is bad. And again, I'm really sorry for the show being as late as it is. The Real Monster saying, BDL, there were 3 super chats. Okay, I may have missed the rest. My apologies if I've missed any. I will find them in the comments somewhere. I'm just trying to see if there's any questions and comments. If I do find the super chats, I will shout them out. Gabi, thank you so much. Great work, BDL. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's actually my Rav. Let's see here. Hey, BDL, agreed, we need a much smaller government. Absolutely, Hein. That's a comment by Hein Strobel. Shout out to you, homie, out in George, if I'm not mistaken. I will see you guys very soon. I will hit the garden route at the end of this month. That's at the end of September, as I make my way to PE and from PE to Durban. So shout out to you guys. I'll give you those dates very soon. If you're in that part of the world, just drop me an email. Let's meet, let's have a chat, and we might even do some work if you're willing to join me in some of the groundwork in your part of the world. I'm just going to try and find some comments here, guys. We're going to wrap up very soon. I know it's a bit later than usual. Maybe just 2 more comments, guys, and then we'll call it a night. Let's see here. Yolanda van Beek, the real question is, who gives the government their orders and instructions? Who is really controlling this country? This is a question by Yolanda van Beek. Good question, Yolanda. Good question. You know, it would be very interesting to see exactly who our politicians have in their ear. Who's whispering in through their ear. Corley van der Merwe, thank you so much for the Is this another super chat? Paying, swear galore, no pain to us. Okay, it's the same one. Sorry. All right, guys, just two more comments, as I said. Lucanio, good evening, my brother. Good to see you on the show. The EFF is fine. Oopsie daisy. The EFF is fine with violence. The problem is that if you encourage violence against cliques, you can't speak against violence against vulnerable members of society like women and kids. Lucanio, 100%. 100% agree with you. And you saw what happened. The EFF had to do mental gymnastics to literally balance two opposing arguments. One idiot, Dr. What's his name? Their doctor. For the life of me, I can't think of his name. Mboyisen Ngozi, basically suggesting in a tweet after that lady, my hero, if anything, who pulled out a gun to literally say, hey, back off, stop attacking me. And you saw how quickly those commies fled and got out the way when they saw resistance, real resistance. Which is why I always say, guys, in this country, and this is not a call to violence. This is a call to you, the individual, to families in this country. If you know that police are not going to protect you, if you know that the state has shirked its responsibility at basically protecting us as citizens, then it is incumbent on you to do everything you need to do to protect yourself. Guys, I've been saying this the whole week. Talk to experts. Reach out to guys like Gun Owners South Africa, etc., etc. Get the training, get a gun. Get a firearm, guys. And this is not me saying, oh, go around shooting people, blah, blah, blah. That's not the point of a firearm. The point of a firearm is to allow you to be your own first responder. Your own first responder. So that you can literally have a granny. You know, a lady who looked like she was maybe in her 60s. Faced with a mob of EFF guys, you can literally have someone, even in that situation with odds against her, pull something out and see them instantly back off from attacking her and pushing her around. That's the importance of something like being a responsible self-defender, a responsible armed self-defender. It is the ability to protect yourself and, more importantly, the weaker ones amongst society, the more vulnerable ones amongst us in society. Because I can tell you now, this thing is not, it will not be the be-all, end-all of it. Anyway, I digress. As I said, two more comments and then I'll call it an evening. Rochi is saying shadow government. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. Who knows? Who knows? You know, again, I avoid conspiracy theory, but I would be very interested to find out who is in the ear of our politicians, insofar as who's just advising them. Who's advising them? And what is the purpose of some of the stuff we're seeing outside of course, the National Democratic Revolution? What we know is their stated objective as the ANC and really the broad left in this country. The National Democratic Revolution, which is the very socialist communist doctrine that I argue is guiding their decision-making, looking to subvert the institutions of society. Anyway, let me wrap up, guys. One more and then I'll call it a night. Ntuthuko Mbele. Celebrities who help politicians get votes with their influence are a danger. They piss me off. Ntuthuko, my brother, I echo your sentiment. I echo your sentiment. And by the way, you see this around the world, where these elites generally always parrot the talking points of leftist politicians. It's sickening. It's absolutely sickening because it's always against us as the ordinary people in society. Anyway, guys, let me call it there and say thank you so much, everybody. Shalom BDL is last comment from Rochi. Shavua Tov to you, my brother. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm hitting the 53 mark. I'm going to call it the 55 minutes. Remember, you can support the work. This week, look out for the Big Daddy Liberty show. I'm going to do an episode where, let's just say I want to have skin in the game, so to speak. I'm going to take you into the world of where are we now with the clown world shenanigans that are the lockdown and COVID-19 in South Africa. I'm going to do a test of me, basically, for not only the live sorry, I don't have the medical lingo for this, but basically, this is what you're going to see this week. I'm going to do a test for COVID 19. And I'm also going to do the antibody test because I've got a feeling, obese as I am with my risk factor conditions like my hypertension, thank God I don't have diabetes, but with all of those conditions that put me at the risk group, right? I've got a feeling that I may already have had COVID-19 and that I didn't even notice it. The what you call it, the symptoms were so mild that I didn't even notice it. And I'm perhaps going to maybe ask the question as I talk to some medical experts and some actuaries and some guys that maybe this is actually what has been the case for the vast majority of people. So I'm going to have the Panda guys on again. I'm going to talk to some medical experts and see what they've been seeing in their work in the field as medical practitioners. So again, I'm going to put my skin in the game, so to speak, do those tests for you for this week's episode of the Big Daddy Liberty Show, and then have that conversation with experts around where are we in real terms with COVID-19, and is there really any justification? If you're some of those people who still believes in lockdown, we'll see if there's any justification for any of that nonsense. So look out for that this week. That'll be the Big Daddy Liberty Show this Wednesday. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys. And I must say this, I really do love every single one of you guys. You are the very people who I do what I do as a liberty fighter, a zealot, if you will, for liberty ideas. So remember, guys, blessed evening to every single one of you. And yeah, let's keep doing this for faith, flag, family, and freedom. And remember, even as I say that, never trust a commie.